Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming and welcome to the Cross Center Fellowship. And last week we have learned about the cost of discipleship, how it costs us everything, even though salvation is free, right? And how it's important that we have to obey God's will than self will. And also we have learned that how obedience is more important than our own feelings, right? So today we'll see about Jesus Christ, right? And I want you all to come with me to the Garden of Gethsemane, right? The meaning of Gethsemane means the place of pressing, okay? And I want you all to be with me in the Garden of Gethsemane, where there is no crowd, there is no noise. It's a quiet garden just outside the Jerusalem, okay? And the Gethsemane means oil press. Now listen carefully, because this is very important. In Israel, olives were not useful until they were crushed. So farmers would take the olives and place them in a stone basin, and then a heavy stone will roll over them again and again and again. Not gently, not quickly, but slowly, with weight and with pressure, until the olive broke. And when they broke, oil begins to flow. Okay, so this is, the more is the pressure, the more is the purer the oil comes out from the olive. Now stay with me, because this is not just about farming, okay, but what I am giving you is a picture. That night, in the very place of pressing, Jesus stepped into the garden, not to rest, okay, but to be pressed. There were no soldiers yet, no cross yet, no nails also present. But it is dark, the disciples are there, but they don't understand. The weight in the air is heavy. Something is about to happen. And there he is, Jesus, not preaching, not healing, not performing miracles, but he's trembling. He is trembling. In Matthew 26:38, it says that my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. This is not the strength people expect. This is not even the image of the power we are used to. But this is something deeper. He walks a little further and falls to the ground and begins to pray. He says, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. Book of Luke chapter 22 verse 42 says. Listen carefully. This is the moment where everything hangs on. Just Jesus and the full weight of what he is about to carry. So stay here. Don't rush to the cross. Okay? Because if you don't understand what happened in Gethsemane, you will never fully understand what happened on the cross. In Luke chapter 22 verse 44 says, and being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Luke, the physician, is one of the gospel writers who records this detail and the matters. He notices something medically significant. We call it as hematophytrosis. It is an extremely rare condition where severe mental anguish or fear causes the body to go into extreme stress response. The tiny capillaries around the sweat glands, they rupture. The blood mixes with the sweat and is released through the skin. What triggers it is the extreme fear. Okay, or maybe reported before execution of Jesus Christ. A severe emotional trauma. Okay, intense psychological distress. Okay, so what happens physically is the skin becomes fragile and highly sensitive. The body is already in the state of shock, and the blood loss begins even before any physical injury. So when Luke writes this, he is not exaggerating in a poetry way. He is describing a real physiological event. What was Jesus experiencing is internal. And this is where most people may misunderstand. Jesus was not afraid of physical pain. many martyrs faced crucifixion with a lot of guts, with a lot of courage and with a bravery. But something deeper was happening. First is the weight of sin. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says that God made him who had no sin to be sin for us. For the first time in eternity, the one who knew no sin was about to become sin. That means bearing every lie which we have spoken, bearing every murders, bearing every hidden sin. He was carrying the full weight of humanity's guilt. This is not symbolic. This is a substitution. Second thing is that he knows that he is going to separate from the Father. In Matthew 27 verse 46 says that, my God, why have you forsaken me? In Gethsemane, Jesus knows very well what he is going to face and is already anticipating it. The deepest agony was not the nails. It was a separation from the Father. Something he had never experienced in his whole life. And first time is going to happen. And third thing is the cup of wrath. In Matthew 26 verse 39 says that, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, but not as I will, but as you will. The cup in scripture represents God's wrath against sin. Jesus was about to drink the divine judgment, the holy justice, full punishment for sin, and he would drink it alone. So why hematophytrosis matters spiritually? Because this is not just medical, it is theological. Because it shows the suffering starts before the cross. Before he's going on the cross, it didn't begin at Golgotha, it began in Gethsemane. And Jesus is experiencing a real human anguish. In Hebrews 4:15 it says that, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses. See, he is not floating above the pain. Okay, he is entering into fully, emotionally, mentally and physically. His body has already broken before flogging. Before the flogging starts, his body is already getting broken. Why? Because of the hematophytrosis. The skin became extremely tender. Flogging would be even more devastating. Pain would be multiplied. So when the soldiers later scourged him, he was already physically weakened and sensitive. Now, Gethsemane is a real battle. We often think cross is where Jesus decides to save us. Okay, the decision is settled actually in Gethsemane. The cross is execution. Gethsemane is a surrender. Now, also we have to understand there is a clash between two wills. Okay, when Luke 22 says there, Father, if you are willing, okay, take this cup from me, not my will, but yours be done. This is not weakness. This is perfect honesty under unbearable weight. So what is happening is, Jesus has a real human will. He does not want actual suffering. But Jesus also has a divine mission to redeem humanity. So in this moment, his human will is brought into full submission to the Father's will. See, this is critical, because where Adam failed in the Garden of Eden, Jesus obeys in the Garden of Gethsemane. In Romans 5:19 says that, for just as through the obedience of one man the many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of one man the many will be made righteous. So the victory over sin begins not at the cross, but in obedience. The cup, what he truly faced, he says that, he's not talking about nails. In Isaiah 51 verse 17 says that, you who have drunk from the hand of the Lord the cup of his wrath. Even in the book of Jeremiah chapter 25 verse 15 says, take from my hand this cup filled with the wine of my wrath. The cup represents God's wrath against sin. That means every sin ever committed, every hidden thought, every act of rebellion, all of it must be judged. And Jesus is here about to absorb it fully, without dilution, without any escape. That is why his soul is overwhelmed to the point of death. Now, why the anguish was so extreme? He says in Matthew 26:38, my soul is overwhelmed with the sorrow to the point of death. This is something we have to understand, that he was expecting a divine judgment. Jesus knows exactly what divine justice requires. He is not guessing. He fully understands the weight, the cost, the consequences of sin, and what is coming upon him is not uncertain. It is known. He sees it completely. Jesus is completely pure. Sin is not normal to him in any way. What we tolerate to or become used to, he experiences as deeply offensive and unbearable. The presence of sin is not just heavy, it is repulsive at a level beyond our understanding. From eternity, Jesus has known unbroken fellowship with his Father. There has never been a moment of distance. Now he is about to experience forsakenness. Okay, something completely outside his eternal experience. That's amazing. This is not just suffering, it is separation he has never known before. Anyone can say, I love you. But love is proven when you see the cost, when you feel the weight, when you still choose to go through it. And Jesus had a real choice. Don't you think I can call on to my Father? He will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels. That's what Matthew 26:53 says. So he was not trapped. He was not overpowered. But he wants to stay there. The meaning of not my will is that this is a deeper submission towards God, and it is alignment. Jesus is not reluctant, dragged to the cross. He is saying, I fully agree with my Father's plan, even though it cost me everything. This is divine love expressed through obedience. And why the blood, sweats matters even now, more now. Why? Because according to as we learn about the hematophytosis is outward sign of an inward reality. The pressure is already crushing him. The suffering has already begun. The cost is already being felt. So when you see the cross later, you are not seeing the beginning of suffering. You are seeing the continuation of a decision already been made. So let me bring it to home clearly. What happened in Gethsemane? Sin was not yet placed, but it was approaching. Wrath was not yet poured, but it was inevitable. The cross was not yet carried, but it was accepted. And Jesus says yes. This changes everything. If Jesus had said no in Gethsemane, there is no cross, there is no forgiveness, and there is no salvation. So salvation is not just about nails and blood. It is about a moment in the dark garden where the Son of God chooses God over his own comfort, where he chooses you and me over his own comfort. So at the end I want to say in Hebrews chapter 5, 7-8, during the days of Jesus' life on earth, he offered up prayers and petitions with fervent cries and tears. He says, Son, though he learned obedience from what he suffered. So today, don't just say, I love you, Jesus. Understand what you are saying. To love him means to follow him. To follow him means is to carry your cross. Not run from pressure. Okay, don't run away. Don't escape because it is very hard. Don't choose comfort over obedience. Jesus didn't run from Gethsemane. He surrendered to it. So today ask yourself honestly, when I say I love you, Jesus, do I mean surrender or just words? Or because the real love is telling you to stay there, stand there and carry the cross. So my dear friends, I believe if this message has helped you, pray to God that today, even when the suffering comes, we stand up and do what the Bible says. Thank you for this time.